Hey guys, it's God's Comic Brad Stine. Simple little question to start your day. Do you believe the United States of America was built on slavery? That this country could not have come into existence without slaves? If you believe that, comment down below. If you don't, comment there. This is an important question to be asked. So let's unshackle your presuppositions and get free to find the truth. Come on in. You know, folks, over the last few years, one of the main critiques against the United States is the fact that at its founding, the United States had slaves. It did indeed. When we think of a slave in this day and age, it sounds kind of foreign to our ears. We consider it despicable and immoral to kidnap a fellow human being from his or her homeland and forcefully transport them against their will to a different country or town or tribe and force them to work for you, the slaveholder, for no compensation, and to never let them return to their home of origin or even have the ability to set themselves free. Yet that is exactly what took place in America, where human beings from sub-Saharan Africa were forcefully taken and transported to the United States, where they could be bought and sold as a commodity in order to find cheap labor to perform some of the most unenviable tasks a human might be asked to accomplish. Because of this reality in the history of America, there are many academics, starting in our universities, that have essentially told us that the use of slaves allowed the U.S. to immorally and unethically acquire wealth and power that would have been unattainable without slave labor. If that is the idea that we want to be taught to our children, then we have to be honest enough to do it accurately, right? As far as numbers go, a little more than 300,000 sub-Saharan African captives, or 4 to 6%, came to the United States. The majority of enslaved Africans went to Brazil, followed by the Caribbean. Most historians, when documenting the first slaves to hit our shores, used 1619 as a starting point. 20 Africans, referred to as servants, arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, on a Dutch ship. It's important to note, however, that they were not the first Africans on American soil. Africans first arrived in America in the late 16th century, not as slaves, but as explorers, together with Spanish and Portuguese explorers. One of the best known of these African conquistadors was Estefancio, I think. Not a really good pronouncer. But he traveled throughout the Southeast, from present-day Florida to Texas. As far as the institution of chattel slavery, the treatment of slaves as property in the United States, if we use 1619 as the beginning and the 1865 13th Amendment as its end, it lasted 246 years, which is a far cry from 400 years, in case facts matter to you. In 1807, the United States Congress outlawed the foreign slave trade. The law prohibited importing any more people from Africa or the Caribbean. So, the most blatant and obvious issue to be explored right off the bat is, why does this rewrite of history begin by fudging the numbers? What exactly is this project's purpose overall? The simple, superficial answer is it wants to remind us how immoral slavery is. But I don't know of any Western thinker or country or culture that doesn't agree with that. Do you? It's kind of like the white supremacy problem that leftists constantly tout whenever they want to diminish a person with lighter skin disagreeing with them. It isn't an issue at all, but how else can you extort money from businesses if you don't create a dilemma that would make it impossible for someone to refuse to participate in without appearing insensitive? Personally, through no fault of my own, I have been white my entire life. So I have an inside look at white culture because it's my people. By far, throughout my life, the majority of my family, friends, relationships, girlfriends, bosses, and business owners, as well as trusted confidants and pastors and enemies, they've all been white. So if there was some insidious white supremacy underground conspiracy taking place, I definitely would have been in on it. After all, I blend in with the white-skinned people, and they wouldn't suspect a thing. Nevertheless, this is going to be shocking for anyone 22 and younger attending college. Is this reality? In my entire life, I have never, and I mean never, met a white supremacist. Ever. Of course, in this age of accusations over documentation, the very fact that I've claimed never to have met a white supremacist must mean one thing. I am one. When the absurdist, self-loathing, best-selling book, White Fragility, hit the streets, one of the introspective ways white people were taught to evaluate if they were racist was they asked themselves if they were. If you said you weren't a racist, then that automatically meant you were. Seem odd? Well, only if you consider the medieval witch trials that threw a woman weighted down with rocks into the water, and if she floated to the surface, she was without a doubt a witch, was promptly burned at the stake. If she sunk and drowned, on the other hand, well, then she was clearly innocent, and no further investigation would be necessary. The latest version of this idiocracy was COVID. The main symptom of COVID, we were told, is having no symptoms. So that brings us back to the 1619 Project. Let's just pretend for a moment that it is simply trying to remind us of a dark chapter in this country's origins. It has no leftist agenda of seeking to continue to bring hatred and contempt towards the country that has brought more freedom, income, equality, human dignity, and innovation to the world, all the while doing so with the most historically documented, diverse country in human history. Let's just pretend. And pretend is the operative word here, because absolutely nothing leftism brings to this earth is uplifting and of benefit to human flourishing. I mean, if it did, it wouldn't need to censor and erase conservative free speech that dismantles its cancerous ideology every time it compares its Marxist policies to free market conservative ones. By the way, if you ever want a simple experiment to evaluate whether an idea is a good one and will benefit the most amount of people, this will be embraced by the general population, well, just ask yourself one question: does it allow or forbid dissent to its ideology? If it forbids dissent, it is most assuredly evil and needs no further inquiry. As I have taught you before on previous issues, the only ideology in the world that is censoring ideas it disagrees with is the left. If you are a leftist and agree with that policy, then congratulations, you are a totalitarian civilian despot. If you're in college and agree with safe spaces and microaggressions and the uninviting of people you don't like, then you are also a coward, weak, spineless, closed-minded, which is exactly why when you and your comrades invoke these policies, you always do it by claiming to be woke, open-minded, tolerant. I mean, why go through the trouble of actually having to live those principles when just claiming to keeps you from having to do the grown-up work of educating yourself to hearing and evaluating both sides of an issue? You're paying lots of money to be a university college kid, which is teaching you to behave and think like you did in elementary school, where crying and whining and staying close to the cool kids while leaving the undesirables out of your clique made you feel better about yourself. So I know I wanted to talk to you about slavery in America, but it was important to help you have the chance to see yourself as you actually are, in the hope that you have the integrity to fight for free speech for those you despise. It's called being a grown-up. In your world, it's called being tolerant and fair. You say you will fight for that right for everyone? Really? I'm a Christian, conservative. And for your information, we're still waiting. This is God's Comic, Brad Stine. Whether you like it or not, PC free is liberty. Hey, all my family, friends, and fans. It's God's Comic, Brad Stine. Thank you for your support. Please keep it up. Every single month that comes by, if you just give that little $5, $10, $25, whatever you've committed to, we can keep doing this. I'm telling you, if you believe in my ministry, you can help me make it happen. Folks, I will be out here doing the work, I promise you, but I do need your support. Thank you for being there. Don't give up on me. Share it with anybody else you might want to bring into the table that you think could be inspired by this. But let's do some damage for the kingdom while we're still here and God has still blessed us. It's still the greatest nation on earth. Let's see if we can keep it that way.